877-62336. I'm going to get right back to the phone calls. We're off to Pennsylvania. Tim, welcome to the program.
Hey, good show. Hey, just to touch on the minimum wage, my niece went through her junior year of high school working at a restaurant as a waitress for $2.52 an hour, paid for her nursing school. And when her first year of nursing, after she graduated, she's like, I make only this much as a nurse. And, you know, she was pulling down anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 over Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
But anyway, my real question is about the fireman kit that you have and the leaky gut. Can those be taken at the same time, or do I have to take the leaky gut for 14 days and then move over to the fireman's?
You don't have to. They're really addressing two different things. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of supplements all at once, though. I'll go back to my, I used to do this with fuel mileage. There were times where I'd get really excited about fuel mileage and do 3 things to my truck. Well, when you test your numbers, you're not really sure what did what. So I used to say, I like to do one thing at a time. It's kind of the same way with health. We might get lucky and you take both at the same time and everything fixes itself. But if you take both at the same time and we get some weird symptom in there, and it can happen, then we don't know what to attribute it to, so we have to kind of start all over again. So you could do them at the same time, but I would say separate them. I think it's better to focus on one thing at a time. That way, if we either don't get results, which happens sometimes, or we get weird results, it'll be easier to troubleshoot.
Okay, it's just like some of them, a couple of the things parallel each other, like they're doing the same thing.
It could, very possible, because a lot of our kits, there are some supplements that we put in every kit, because every supplement in a kit has a reason. If we're fighting inflammation, we know that you have to address this, and this. Here are the supplements that'll do it. Well, in leaky gut, we have to address this, and this, and there's some crossover. That we need some supplements to do the same thing. So again, if you want to, you could, I would probably do it. I mean, because I do all kinds of stuff like that. But, so if you wanted to take them at the same time, you could do it. It would probably work great. You might even save yourself a little bit of money. And there's no harm. You're not going to hurt yourself doing it.
Right on. I just wondered if it would be a waste of money if you're overlapping the two.
Well, you wouldn't. You would have to look at it and say, okay, and I'm just going to use an example. In this kit, there's vitamin D drops, and I'm supposed to take 1 a day. And in this protocol, I'm also supposed to take 1 a day, so should I take 2? Maybe. The other beauty of nutrients rather than drugs, we can overdo a lot of nutrients without any real negative side effects. For example, the daily dose of the vitamin D drop is 1. Well, in the winter, I take 2, because I get virtually 0 sun where I am in the winter time, and what sun there is isn't very effective at creating vitamin D because of the angles. So I take 2 drops. That's a lot of vitamin D. When you look at what the daily recommendation is, I'm probably taking 10 times more than that. But we also know...
We're learning that daily recommendations are just not something that we should abide by. I mean,
exactly.
Look at the triangle.
Exactly. Yep, you're right.
Well, thanks, Kevin. Good show, and I appreciate everything that you're doing for us.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. We're going to head off to Texas. Robert, welcome to the program.
Morning, Kevin. The gentleman that was talking about J.B. Hunt, I guess I look at it differently. Let's just say we have 1 million trucks moving freight out here, and 50% of the time we're loaded, 50% we're empty. If I can go to their board and increase my productivity by 25%, meaning I'm loaded now 75% of the time, I can cut my rates by 15% and still make 10% more money.
Exactly. Great example. That's the point I'm trying to talk about, that as an industry, we have a long way to go to increase efficiency. And if you're a smart business person like you are, you realize that lowering rates doesn't always lower your profit. And you just gave a great example of pulling at a lower rate, but making more money, which is all we really care about.
That's it. I'm not colorblind. The only color
That's right.
I see is green.
Yeah,
And-
that's right.
And then to your analogy of the bloodbath, well, if we got 1 million trucks on the road, we could probably cut 250,000 of them out. And,
Yep.
you know, I'm sorry for those guys, but maybe they need to crunch their numbers.
Absolutely. And that's what business is. And that was a great example. You're right. 250,000 people are put out of business, but the other 750,000 are now more profitable. And we've lowered the rate to move goods, which is good for the economy and good for the consumer.
Yes. Win-win.
That's right. Win, win, lose. There will be a loser in this. I'm okay with that. That's how life works.
Yeah, you know, it's just like you said, you know, you just got to be the better one out there. You know, crunch your numbers, be efficient. You know, you got to have a spreadsheet to track your stuff, and it'll all work out.
You know, some people think that I'm crazy when I say this, but the one thing that I wish there was more of in my business, what I do, you know, not so much being here on the air, but accounting for owner-operators, there's some there, the health for owner-operators, education for owner-operators, seminars, books, stuff like that. The biggest downside to this business, I don't have any competition. And that may sound arrogant, but it's not, I'm not saying it like there are other people doing it, they're just not as good as I am. There's just nobody else doing it. I mean, there are so few people in the country that I could almost say that if you look at Let's Truck, there is no other business in the country that does what we do. Now, there are some people that do a little bit of what we do. Some people have software for accounting for truckers. Some people do taxes. There are a couple people talking about health. But our seminar, the CMC, there's nothing else like it. OIDA tried for a couple of years. Theirs failed. I've seen a couple other attempts. People think it would be wonderful being in a business with no competition. I mean, I'm okay, but I'd rather have competition. It would force me to be even better.
True, but, you know, there's nothing wrong with the fact that you were smart enough to find a niche in the market and you're exploiting it. I do the exact same thing. The number of people that do what I do is very limited. I'm home every night. I make a tremendous amount of money, and I found that niche, and I exploited it. I take care of my customers.
There you go. There you go. It's a great thing. Yeah, and again, I'm not really complaining. I just realize that there are times when I can be prone to coasting, and we still do okay. Whereas if I think somebody's competing, then I dig down in and I get to work. That's my nature. So I sometimes want that competition. I want to be pushed to get better because it's easy. It's human nature to sometimes coast. And, you know, you're not going to coast in trucking. This is an extremely competitive market. And now I've said, even though it's really competitive and there's a lot of people in it, it's just not that hard to succeed. It's really not. Let's take another call. Let's head off to Tennessee. James, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Just want to say thanks for everything you're doing. And I started keto about 6 months ago. Had great results. I lost about 55 pounds out of my goal of 100, but had great results just like you said I would, and everybody else is having.
Good.
I've fallen into the quagmire of trying to get some family members on the boat and hash this over and over.
Good luck.
Yeah. So I just kind of want to ask, in regards to a certain person, they were diagnosed with a bad hip, and doctor said, I guess there's like a small tear in a tendon, there's some inflammation, and then after an MRI, they realized that there's no blood flow to the femur. So, do you think, well, I guess I know what you think, but do you think over time proper nutrition would restore that problem.
Absolutely.
Where she can live a healthy life without surgery.
Yep. Well, and I can't guarantee that. I'm not looking at. There are certain things we damage so badly in our body that ultimately it does require some sort of medical intervention to fix. So I can't be sure of what the severity is, but we do know this. Good nutrition is pretty damn amazing for our body. Our bodies are not meant to be broken. They weren't designed that way. They are self-healing machines. Our bodies are incredible at what they can do as far as repairing and fixing and rebuilding. Virtually every tissue in our body can rebuild itself. We thought for a long time that the brain could not create new nerve endings. It can. So even the tissues in our body that we thought couldn't regenerate, we now know they can. So I think that it's possible, again, I don't know the severity, and whether it would work or not, and she did have to go for surgery, nothing would be better to help that process and to help her get through the surgery easier and heal better than good nutrition.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Just a few months ago, she was still bowling on a bowling league, and then all of a sudden, she was having some pain, and then it was on and off. Like one day it was fine, next day it was hurting, or even in the morning it was fine, afternoon it was sore. So, and then all of a sudden, bam, she needs a hip replacement. I'm like, wow, that was fast.
Yeah. And hip replacement surgeries don't have a great history.
Yeah, I've heard stories, especially as you get older, and yeah.
Well, many of the devices have failed. They've had to go back in and take them out because even though the FDA approved them, 5 or 10 years later, we find out that it wasn't a good thing to put in our body and it caused problems, and they have to go back in and yank them out. So there is some history there that this doesn't always solve the problem, and it causes more problems. So I would always. So here's the thing about something like this. If somebody comes to me and they said, the doctor says if I don't do this right now, I'm going to have a heart attack and I'm going to die. Or the doctor says if we don't take out that gallbladder because it's inflamed, you're going to die. Well, there are some times where we just have to do that. It's gone too far. We can't risk killing somebody while we're trying to heal them. But in a case like this, we're only talking about pain, right? And I know pain is horrendous. I'm not downplaying it, but there's nothing about this hip that's going to kill her. It just makes her uncomfortable. So I would be all for a nutritional approach first. Let's see how much nutrition can help this, and then there's no downside to that. Ultimately, even if you have to get the surgery, this time we spent focusing on nutrition can only be a good thing.
Right, yeah, I felt the same way, but okay. So obviously over the years things have kind of been moving. The government dropped their guidelines on cholesterol, so things are starting to move in that direction toward, okay, things aren't what we thought they were 50 years ago.
Right.
And they're saying, it could take, a decade or whatever. I think it's going to take a lot longer than that. Can't we just get like 1,000 people together and throw out a class action lawsuit for malpractice to the medical community? How hard would it be to find 1,000 people?
Probably not. And you may be onto something. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of using the courts for these kinds of reasons. I'm not completely against it. And you may be onto something. As this becomes more and more popular and we see how much damage was done. Let me get to a break and I'll come back and I'll talk about that because it's a good topic. Stick around, we've got more coming. We'll be right back. You're on the Road Dog, Sirius XM 146.